All right, so keep it clean, folks. You're recording now, okay? Okay, so part of this study is to the main part of this study is for me not to just lecture you. This is a very interactive course, and we'll try and do some sort of liturgical things too, such as lighting of a Christ candle. So we're going to start with that. And Sir Alex, if you would be so kind as to light a candle. Watch the cords. Just the white one. In the middle. Right in the middle. You got it.
It's tricky to do that.
Yeah.
Hey,
You got it.
He didn't need me. So, just a word of scripture as we light the candle. Again, Jesus spoke to them saying, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. And then if you bow your heads, I'll always have an opening prayer. Living God, you are generous in creating, compassionate in redeeming, gracious in calling, and tenacious in seeking out the lost. Join our searching minds to your searching spirit, that we may come to know you in the words of Scripture and in Jesus Christ, your living word. Search for us, speak to us, and draw closer to us. In Christ we pray. Amen. All right, the first thing I want to just go over quickly is what the heck charisma is. Does anybody know? If you look in the front of your books, what's that first word they've got there? On the front of your book.
Charisma.
Charisma. What the heck is charisma? Anybody?
it's just population there.
There you go. Good. I used to tell my students, I was a nursing instructor, I'd be like, it's right there. So it means proclamation, right? It's from a Greek word, caruso. Don't worry about the Greek so much, but it's up there if anybody's interested. But it's to cry or proclaim or herald, in a sense, to preach. And it started coming into use in the Bible for the apostles, right? So it's the initial sort of spreading the word, all right? So before we spread any word, we have to know and understand the word, all right? And that's part of what we'll be doing today. All right, so this is the fun part, not that it's all not fun. But this is more of a just sort of breaking the ice. We don't have to answer all of these questions, but we just sort of go around the room and introduce yourself. And I'll read these questions, just think about them. You can choose to answer none of them or all of them or one of them, whichever you would like to do, okay? Everybody's squinting trying to read, so I'll read it for you. So, after you introduce yourself, what is an early memory you have of hearing or reading a Bible story? So reading a Bible story or hearing one when you were 3 or 4 or 5 or maybe 18 or 20 or maybe not 2 or 50. What was the story? What kind of an impression did it make? Why do you think you remember it? Again, you can answer part of this, none of this, all of this. And then a separate one, some of the reasons you're interested in discovering the Bible, or what are your expectations for the course, or what concerns brought you to this session. I think the fun one, though, is the remembering the earliest Bible story, and why you think you remembered it, those sorts of things, but don't let me influence you. You can answer any or none of them. So we'll start with John, and we'll go, I guess, across and over and across.
In the early days, all I remember is my parents forcing me to go to school, to Sunday school. But later, as a teenager, I had to study and even memorize the 139th Psalm.
Oh, and we're doing that today.
And I have it's always stuck in my mind, not the Psalm, I can't repeat it, but the fact that God knows everything about you and everything you do. And that made an impression on me when I was a teenager.
And then just a little bit about yourself, like how long you've been here, or if you're an elder,
Uh,
or you live in
yeah.
town or something.
I've been a member of this church since, I don't know, 1974. And not a very good attendance record.
I checked, yeah, no.
Mostly because I worked for most Sundays in
Right.
that period. And, but I've been in Southold since 1973.
Great.
And I'm a cook.
Very nice. You say that like, oh, it's important. You gotta eat. I could be writing all of these down, but I think we're just going to sort of free flow and share with one another. So that's interesting, and any other things, early memory of the Bible, or the reason for being here, or what you expect.
I have no early memories of reading the Bible. It wasn't a part of the of my church life when I was younger. They were more concerned with things you do and don't do and stuff like that. And the Bible was not a particular, any kind of a particular part of it. And I feel as though I don't really know anything about it.
Good reason. Next, Bill.
Well, I'm new to the church. I've been here about 2 years. And I've been all over the map denominationally, but actually I started in the Reformed tradition. So coming back to my roots. Well, in early memory, I remember the pastor in the church I grew up. He would have his children's sermon, and every year he would spend 5 or 6 weeks just telling the story of Joseph over and over. So I got to know that story real well.
Did he ever move on, or that was it? Just Joseph.
And so I'm retired school teacher, and I write poetry.
Lovely. Very nice. And another Bill.
I'm gonna repeat some of what I said in the earlier meeting.
Sure.
My earliest memory was in the kindergarten class, and the teacher did a flannel graph. You put figures and things up on a piece of flannel, and told the story of Jesus healing the person. It's marks somewhere. They dig a hole in the roof and let the person down
Yeah.
through there. And it's stuck in my memory forever. Mrs. Duggar's class. And from there on, I went to Presbyterian college, where I had a year of Bible, a year of Old Testament, a year of New Testament. I've always been interested in reading the Bible, always learning things. And I look forward to this course, where it won't be just facts, but it will be how God searches for us and how we can relate to that search.
And what Bill's saying is important, whether you haven't looked at the Bible much at all, or you've studied it your whole life, or you have a doctoral degree in theology. It still speaks to you in a new way almost every time that you look at it. So it's an ongoing thing. Let me just make sure no Zoomers have come up. All right, and not another Bill. Now you're just making stuff up. Okay.
Probably my earliest memory was in my grandmother's house around Christmas time. And the birth of Christ was probably the birth of the Magi, bringing the gifts. It was a warm, wonderful time of the year and in my life. I can't remember really studying the Bible at any time, although I went to the church, I went to the kindergarten, church school, until I was 10 or 11. So So I'm curious.
And yours is upside down.
Here's what it's under.
Ed.
I can read it.
Well, there you go.
My name is Ed, and I really haven't been into the Bible very much. At one time, it was quite a while ago, I was overseas, and I figured, well, maybe this is a good time to read the Bible.
Mhm.
And I started out right in the beginning. And I'm afraid I didn't get very far because it was not began.
Right. It'll be tricky.
I couldn't keep track of it.
Right.
So here I am.
Great. And that's the thing about the Bible too. I mean, it is a wonderful project to read it from in the beginning and then end with Revelation. And you know, that's a great challenge you give yourself, but you can certainly just open up the New Testament and read some John one day. You don't have to try and get through it all. And some of the really good parts are in the New Testament, not that there's not really good parts in the Old Testament. So it's always feel free. And whatever we've learned from the course, you can just always feel free to just sort of open it up and read a couple of lines, and that's fine. And it may just be the most astounding thing that you just happen to open to that day. So it is sort of a living book that will talk to you. Marla.
Hi, I'm Marla, and I'm Ed's daughter, and we've been here a very long time, 1968. My mom, wherever she would go, she would always gravitate immediately to the church. So we always went to Sunday school, and I would say the first that I have a memory of, I'm sure there were earlier, but around fourth grade, Sunday school, learning, if somebody says John 15:30 through 20, whatever, how to find that. I remember doing that. And then when we came out here, we went to Sunday school up until about the time we were confirmed. And then that was pretty much it, I guess, which is pretty standard, I guess. So, I'm at that point where I'd like to learn more about a lot of different things. And this is an opportunity.
Awesome. Bonnie without any. Oh, it's gone. That's okay. Don't worry about it. Oh, it's
On
fine.
my jacket, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
I've been here in Southold since 1974 or 75. And we moved out here to get away from Nassau County, I guess. As far as, I was a Lutheran when I was going to Sunday school in Port Washington. We never really studied the Bible. And basically that's why I'm here. I've gotten interested in it since I've done the prayer group for this church. I think what we did a lot in the Lutheran church when we were in Sunday school was memorizing things.
Oh, yeah.
That's
That's it.
the creeds and things like that.
Right.
But there was no real learning.
Interesting. Work is cut out for us. Soon.
I've been in the area since '85, but I've only attended here for 13 years. Growing up, my church experience was always around the sacraments. So that's what you were learning. You weren't learning anything else. So my earliest remembrance was I had a picture book of saints, and I had to pick a saint for confirmation name. So that's what I remember reading the most. I chose Saint Elizabeth of Hungary. And I really liked the story. She was a queen of Hungary, and she used to bring food in her apron down to the gates where the poor people were at the end. And one day her husband, who didn't like her doing that, asked her what was in her apron, which of course had been food. But when she opened it, it was roses. And that just so impressed me, and that she would be protected that way. But since I didn't get that kind of a background, this is, I've done little bits and pieces, but this will be very nice to add to what I know.
And yours?
Okay, I'm a Jewish Methodist Presbyterian.
Another one?
So I came to I was involved in this church since 1997 or 98. It's a long story, a little bit, and then I moved out here in 2000, and this was my other church until 2008. Right soon around the time that she started going, we didn't plan it, but I got here and she was in a pew. So that's where I've been, and I joined, and I've been a deacon, and I'm, I guess, an inactive deacon now or something. And okay, Bible stories. I went to Hebrew school starting at age 10. We did not read the actual Bible. We had a Jewish history book. When they had, book 1, book 2, like that. And then when they decided we knew enough Hebrew, they gave us like the beginning, like Genesis in Hebrew to translate. So in the beginning, God created, that kind of thing. But because I started Hebrew school in December, my first Bible story was the Hanukkah story. And I started going to church in 1976 and came out here and ended up here in 2008. And I've been to Bible studies here, and when I moved here, I had just finished Disciple 1, and I commuted back to Nassau County for the other disciples. And I'm a poor history student, so I'm a poor retention person of, the details of the Bible. So people expect me to know so much.
Right.
But it gets lost in my brain.
Do you remember any Hebrew?
Yeah, Baruch atah.
We-
No, there are different
Shadi.
words
Yeah.
now, and I can count and stuff like that, but I really haven't gotten to use it much.
So not to frighten anyone to run out of here, but we're going to look at a little Hebrew next time. We're not
Oh,
going to
good.
learn any Hebrew. But
I
you'll
can
just
read
at
it with
least,
vowels.
yeah. So I'll be looking your way when I pronounce something wrong.
Kathy, hi. I am a practicing Catholic. I go to church sometimes on Saturday afternoon. I come here on Sunday morning. I love the focus of this church. I love the Matthew 25 focus that you have. And my reason for interesting in discovering the Bible is really to deepen my relationship with God, and to do that, knowing the Bible is, I think, the
It's his
critical
word.
piece of that.
Awesome. Mickey, thank you.
I'm Nikki. I was raised Catholic. I practice as a Catholic. I also enjoy going to other churches and feeling, out how that speaks to me as well. My earliest memory about the Bible is probably that the 23rd Psalm was something that I always heard talked about as a child. I don't even remember why that comes to my mind, but that's what was my earliest memory. So I connected that with the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
As a Catholic, we were really not encouraged to read the Bible because we didn't have the intellect, or we didn't have the understanding to read it and understand it correctly. That was that's what I got. So I'm interested in learning about the Bible and how it can work into my faith journey.
And Cheryl.
I'm Cheryl. I was baptized in Alberta, Canada as a Ukrainian Greek Orthodox person. That was a faith that both my father and mother's family had grown up in. I remember one Easter service when the priest took the first 5 minutes to admonish the women who had dared show up to church hatless. So I had that sort of impression. The first service that we came to here was almost 20 years ago. Peter was wearing hip waders and throwing a fly fishing line out into the congregation, and I thought it was the most amazing thing. We baptized our daughter here. My father grew up singing in the choir, but later in life he used to say that he thought he could be closer to God fishing on a Sunday morning. The Bible story that sticks out for me is Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat, not because of Donny Osmond, that came later, but because we performed it and took it to the provincial finals when I was 13. I have served one term as an elder here. My views tend to be a bit unconventional, I think. My mom said, suppose we die and find out that God and Allah, and she named several others, are all one and the same. Aren't we going to look stupid then? And so I can't deny that there may be something to that. As I said to you a few Sundays ago, my catalyst was watching Jeopardy, and every time a Bible question came up, realizing that 3 people on stage were instant, and I was going, huh. And like Ed, I have tried to read the Bible several times and begat,
Oh, gosh.
and then I was done. So,
Split to the other hand.
so I'm also looking forward to educating myself.
Great.
And learning more about this book.
Lovely. And Carolyn?
Most of you know me. I'm Carolyn. And what would I like to get from this course? I have been reading through the Bible on my own, and I want to become more knowledgeable and familiar. And that's what I'm looking to do.
Perfect. Charles.
Charles, Deacon here. What drew me to the course was it's A to Z. I've never been a Bible study course that's this holistic. So it's bring me through the whole, the Old Testament and the New Testament. Maybe look at it in bits and pieces, but I think this and a couple of some of the historic stuff that's in this course will give me some perspective around it. A couple of early impressions. Don't have anything to do with reading the Bible or a Bible story, but I can distinctly recall not wanting to go to Sunday school as a child and always trying to get out of it. And I remember one time I tried to get away from my mom, who was going to force me to go, and I dumped under the bed and rolled under there and rolled right over a tack, which promptly stuck in my arm. I attended Sunday school and catechism, St. Agnes in Greenport. I was Catholic all the way through confirmation as well. And for some reason, I could never remember any of the prayers. And I told this during one of our logistics meeting. And they had a father there, Father Rocco, who used to constantly knock on my head and ask me if I had rocks in it. So most of my memories improved a little bit since then. So maybe I'll be able to retain some.
I'll take that off.
Never know.
All right.
We'll see. But he's not around anymore, so I don't have to worry about that.
Yeah. Oh, goodness gracious. And another Caroline. Caroline. Okay.
Caroline, when you first put that up there, I thought, I don't have any early memories of reading the Bible. I was raised Unitarian. We didn't have Bibles in church, but we learned all about the Bible. It just was under a different method, I think. So my earliest memory is actually the story of Passover. I went to a Unitarian Universalist church in Plandome, Manhasset, and I think as I grew up, I realized that I think most of the people who joined that church had been Jewish and left Judaism to become Unitarian. So we learned, I think, a lot of Old Testament stories. We always had Seders every year. And I always thought that was part of church.
Right.
So, but we learned all about Jesus and what a great man he was and all the good things he did. Right. So, but you know, they came with Bible stories. And we learned about Joseph. We did a lot with that story, those stories. So yeah, I guess I knew more, and I always grew up feeling like I knew nothing because I wasn't going to the Episcopalian church with my best friends or the Catholic church with everyone else at school. So in college I took a Bible as literature course, English course, so we went through the Bible. So just in terms of lifelong learning, and my faith journey has really morphed over the past many years. I've served on the board of deacons here. I'm now on session. I think I'm in my second term. Seems like it's been a while. And we joined this church. My daughter was probably about 6. So that was probably about 15 years ago we joined. And we've been coming, my whole family, ever since. We're all members. I'm really excited to just keep learning and keep digging deeper into myself and the Bible. That's what we do.
And last but not least.
I'm Isabel, and I'm here today because I want to learn more about the Bible. I actually grew up Catholic. I went to Catholic school for 10 years. I did do a lot of reading of Bible stories, but I don't remember a lot of them. We did mostly praying. That was probably the focus of my religious upbringing. So I like to get to know more about the Bible and how to interpret some of the stories. Like many others, I've been trying to do it on my own, but I feel that I need the help to get me to understand this a little bit better.
Awesome. Got quite a mix here. Very good. Just quickly, one of my stories I can tell you is I was reminded by my Sunday school teacher, I think about 25 years after she was my Sunday school teacher, that when I heard about the flood, I said, what about all the animals? Why do you have to go kill all the animals? And she remembered my saying that when I was like 5 years old. That's the only one that really sticks as an early one. You have an early memory?
Little golden books. Anybody remember?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, yes. Puppy, little puppy.
I remember the story of the Exodus. Little golden book. I somehow was attracted to the preacher of our church, so I didn't go to much church school. They let me stay and worship until the summer. And then the biggest impression I ever got was in junior high. My church always had a seminary assistant. And I remember Eddie Grant, Princeton student, young guy, active, athletic. And he pulled us all in the youth group, maybe 10 of us. He would buy us ice cream, and we studied Thessalonians. And I remember thinking, wow, a book called Thessalonians. And he actually made it relevant. And it was my first spark, oh, there's a Bible, and he could say something to me. Not that I became any kind of stellar disciple. The ice cream is the real thing. Those are my early memories.
Awesome. You'll notice we have cookies, right? Okay, so the course itself, we're doing a structured course that I've not taught before. So I want this to be very sort of free-flowing. If something's bothering you, if something's not working for you, I'm not loud enough, you don't like what I'm wearing, I don't care. Just really feel relaxed. Like that was just a garbled mess. I don't know what she's doing up there. Just give us some feedback. It's fine. Or that was very meaningful, and here's why. I just want everybody to be relaxed, and we'll learn together. It's a course I've not taught before. I'm only teaching 3 of them, and then we have a couple of other potentials. So Sue may be teaching, and Charles will likely be teaching. So we're gonna mix it up a little. So everybody just relax. I was gonna say take a deep breath, but because of COVID, I don't think we will. But I just want this to be as relaxed as possible, okay? So normally there would be a video, and there's this lovely old gentleman that that talks in a very monotone sort of, here, I'm the author of this course and I'm from Minnesota and this is my, so I decided to just do a small portion of that, what he was gonna say, and have Peter be that minister, just to liven it up.
What's your key monotone?
For me, discovering the Bible began to get serious and also exciting when I was in high school. Our Sunday morning senior high church school class met in the kitchen of our small neighborhood church. In this comfortable setting, our wise teacher supplied donuts and orange juice and skillfully led us through our textbook, The Bible Speaks to You by Robert McAfee Brown. I would recommend that. Through the guidance he provided in reading the Bible as answers to our questions and the stimulating conversation around the kitchen table, the Bible spoke God's word to me then and continues to do so today. As we begin this course, Discovering the Bible, A New Generation, the following words from Robert McAfee Brown's book clearly articulate the focus of this first session. It wouldn't be enough to say, this is the quote, it wouldn't be enough to say that the Bible is the record of humanity's search for God. It is much closer to the truth to say that the Bible is the record of God's search for humanity. Throughout the Bible, people seem bent on trying to escape from God. And in spite of this, God continues to seek after those same people, refusing to give up, continuing the pursuit in spite of countless rebuffs and evasions. The search culminates in the New Testament, where the claim is made that God has so desired fellowship with us that finally God has not just sent emissaries or ambassadors or prophets or representatives. In Jesus Christ, God has come himself. It is the most astounding word that has ever been spoken. It is the most stupendous claim that has ever been made. If anything is unexpected news, this is.
All right, so let's just do a sort of time check, because this is supposed to just be an hour, and look, it's 1:45, and we've just done introductions. Do people need to run out the door at 11 o'clock? Raise your hand if you're out of here at 11 o'clock. No pressure, like I want to be nobody else is out of here. Okay, we got it, that's fine, that's totally fine. But if we went over 5 or 10 minutes, is that okay? All right, and tops 15, just stop me. Like, we're not doing this anymore. Okay, all right. Okay. All right, now this, please don't worry, this is just sort of my guide as we're gonna go through the resource book, so don't even try and read this up here. It's just sort of prompts. But we do wanna talk about this book because this book is the course. So what they would like for us to do is just to look at Roman numeral 2, page Roman numeral 2 at first. Just Roman numeral 2 in the book. Everybody has a book. Yeah. So, you know, little tiny little, probably way too tiny. Roman numeral, sorry. Yeah. Okay, so on that page, I'll just kind of paraphrase. They want us to look at paragraph 1 and 2, but let me just paraphrase. So the first paragraph says, now I was a school teacher, so you gotta do your homework. Now I know people, you know, have busy lives, they have things that they need to do. If you came and you said I couldn't read any of the Bible verses, we won't kick you out. We'll kind of expect some people won't be able to. It's not a ton of time, and we'll make a little time today to help you think about how you're going to have time. But honestly, this should not be a lecture course. So if nobody's read, then I can stand here and lecture to you, but I don't know. That's not what we're here for. Yeah.
I'm like a big note taker. Could we write in this or no?
You should write in it, and there's spaces in here to write.
Oh, okay.
So you'll see how that works as we get into the first chapter. But yeah, so bring pens. If you want to have your own separate notebook, that's maybe not a bad idea. If you just want to write in here, there are spaces, but maybe not enough space. If, you know, I stop talking and Peter says something brilliant, you want to write that down. But yes, you will want to be ready. Okay, so the first thing is that you really just please read, because you want to learn about the Bible. It won't speak to you, and you won't discover it or discover God in it if you don't open it up and read it. Okay, so today you will not have been expected to read ahead of time because we're just getting our books, but you'll see kind of how the course works, and we'll do one exercise We'll give ourselves time to do that. And then paragraph 2 on Roman numeral 2 just says, let's just be patient with each other. You know, we're growing and learning together. The church hasn't taught this particular course before. So it just says, you know, you may go home with an unanswered question, bring it next time or send an email, just to be sort of free flowing with this stuff. But it says be patient with yourself. So don't feel like somebody else has had a college course and I've barely read the Bible and my input isn't. Don't think that. Everybody is sharing and learning, and you know, a child can come up with the most profound thing of the day, right? That sometimes happens. So please, everybody just, we're all in here together coming from different areas. Be patient with yourself. The study resources, if I talk too fast, tell me. I'm from Long Island, like the rest of you, can talk fast. The study resources, your leader and others in the group. So everybody just help each other out, okay? That's basically what they're saying there. On page 3, the next page over, it just talks about the fact that there are different Bibles, right? So who has a Bible with them? You'll get ahead and have it, good. So people just name some different sorts of Bible that are out there, different versions. NIV, which is New International Version. Yep. What else we got?
Good news.
New Revised Standard is popular with Presbyterians, among others. Oh, and a study Bible is awesome. If you can find a study Bible, that's terrific. It just helps you as you're going along. You don't have to have one, but it's nice if you have one. A study Bible kind of explains things as you go. What other Bibles are there out there?
The Amplified.
Amplified, right?
I have a hard time.
They may be over amplified. We might not use that one necessarily. How about ye old King James?
Oh.
You know, did we say ooh? This one's fun. Let me just read a little of it. Now watch me. I can talk to you for 2 hours straight, so I got it.
Life Application Study Bible NIV.
Lovely NIV, and it's a study Bible. Perfect.
Yeah.
So the thing about King James, it'll say something like, "And I will camp against thee round about, and will lay siege against thee with them." So it's like these and thous, and it's lovely in its own way, but maybe not a great thing to study from in this sort of group. There's also, this is the African American Devotional Bible, you know, and it just sort of does some research about who African Americans are in the Bible, and how the AME Church might approach reading the Bible. So there's some really cool sort of different ways to look at the Bible. Off the top of our head, other Bibles.
Jerusalem?
Jerusalem Bible is a good one. Mm-hmm.
Somebody said something to Kathy. Is that one you got?
That's one I have.
Okay.
Oh, that's a good
That
one.
was the textbook in the English class I took in college.
Oh, cool.
Jerusalem.
Yeah, that's a really great book. And English Standard, yep.
New American Bible.
New American. So there's a gazillion. Feel free to bring them all. You know, like some Sunday there might be a tricky verse and we might read from 5 different, wow, they're all different. Yeah.
I have the Revised Standard, but want to mention that I downloaded it on a Nook.
That's the other thing
And
is
it
you,
was only 99 cents.
oh, wow. Say that again, louder and slow.
And the advantage, of course, it's very easy to read because you can make the print as big as you want.
Right.
And it's lit, so you can
Right.
read it. in
And
the
some of them you can look up words depending on what system
Yeah.
you have.
Yeah.
So I don't know how many people love computers or hate computers, but that's a whole nother way to look at the Bible is looking at a Bible on the internet. Some people just like to have the Bible in their hands, and that's totally fine. And then, so that's the Bible, and then this is the resource book. So those are your 2 biggies, having a Bible of some sort and making sure you go through this resource book. So again, we're just sort of getting familiar with that book today. If you turn the page, I'm not going to go into all of these, but every time you look at this book, every new chapter, it's going to have a section called "The Story Continues," "Preparing for the search begins, the search continues." So I'll ask you to read over this chapter when you get home and well, look at the next chapter too and do the things in the next chapter. But you'll become familiar. If you do keep up with this course, 5 weeks in, you'll think to yourself, okay, this chapter is going to be about the story and then preparing for the search and then the search begins. And so every single chapter has this way of holding your hand as you go through that chapter. Everybody good with that? Questions, concerns, objections? Okay. The next page just talks about the curriculum program itself. just feel free to read that, especially as we're sort of pressed for time. But I think it'd be more fun to get into the actual nitty-gritty. All right, so I think we should be able to do groups. So what I'll do is, if you had looked ahead, if you had this book, maybe some of you have. Has anybody done the chapter? Any of the leaders done the chapter? Okay. Bill, did you?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. So if you had the book a week ago, you would have looked at a scripture from Psalms, from Isaiah, from Matthew, from Luke, and from Acts. Okay, so you would have read those, and that's pretty much like the homework assignment. You would have read those and answered some questions. So far, so good? Get some furrowed brows rather. We're okay? Okay. So let's look at, because what they asked you to do is to answer some questions about these. So if you look at D14, can you look at D14? I don't know why they make the page number so complicated. D14. It's like we're playing bingo or something. Okay. Is everybody there? Okay. All right. So the question in, as you read each of these, you're going to have a question in your head. And the question is, who is doing the seeking and who is found? Who is doing the seeking and who is found? So is God seeking us in this passage, or are we seeking God in this passage? So in the interest of time, maybe we'll do one of them as a group, and then I'll have you guys do a couple, just form little groups within yourselves, maybe just the people in your own pew, and answer those same questions. Okay? So what are the two questions you're gonna answer?
Who is doing the seeking and who is found?
Now, if we want to get fancy, you also would be thinking about, as you read these different verses, which one do you identify most with? Which one do you identify most with? You can keep that one in the back of your mind. Let's just do the Psalm 139 together, and as a group, we'll talk about who's doing the seeking and who is found, and then we'll do the two that are up there. We'll keep an eye on the clock. All right, so I have a Bible, but does someone want to read? So it's 139, 1 through 24. So we could maybe have two people, one person read Psalm 139, 1 through 12, and the next person take us to 24. And if there's no volunteers, I have a Bible, but I'm sure someone will volunteer. Okay.
You have searched me, Lord, and you know me. You know when I sit and when I rise. You perceive my thoughts from afar. You discern my going out and my lying down. You are familiar with all my ways. Before a word is on my tongue, you, Lord, know it completely. You hem me in behind and before, and you lay your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me, too lofty for me to attain. Where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? If I go up to the heavens, you are there. If I make my bed in the depths, you are there. If I rise on the wings of the dawn, if I settle on the far side of the sea, even there your hand will guide me. Your right hand will hold me fast. If I say, surely the darkness will hide me and the light become night around me, even the darkness will not be dark to you. The night will shine like the day, for darkness is as light to you.
Let's stop there before we go further. Anybody who seems to be seeking whom there, and there is no right answer. Do you see God seeking the writer? Do you see the writer seeking God? Do you see God seeking you? Go ahead.
I see both.
Can you tell me where or how, or just how you got there?
Well, it's a person talking about the presence of the Lord in their life.
Right.
So that awareness would seem that they are searching, that they are speaking to.
Mm-hmm.
And then actually, I snuck past.
Oh, well, just hold that thought. Who, Phil, did you have?
Okay.
Who? You. Somebody else said they saw both?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
even though the person, the writer is seeking God, it's a person that God is seeking based upon what he's saying about God.
So has anyone looked at any Bible verses and thought about that before at all? Like who is seeking? All right, so in a way, this is, sort of a different way or opening up a way to look at the Bible. So for the rest of your days on planet Earth, whenever you're reading the Bible, you can say, is God, speaking to me? Is he seeking me here? Or is this person really trying to seek? Or is it always both? Or are people helping one another with the story, seek God? So this is just to help you think of the book not as just this cold, printed Hebrew or Greek. Hebrew's a lovely language. I don't know why I so tied that in with cold. But and there's beautiful poetry in here. But it's alive in a way, right? It's the living word. There's action happening here. So if you read the book sort of looking for action, you will find it. Does that make sense? Right. So who's got the second half of song? Sorry.
For you formed my inward parts, you wove me in my mother's womb. I will give thanks to you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works, and my soul knows it very well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in secret and skillfully wrought in the depths of the earth. Your eyes have seen my unformed substance, and in your book were all written the days that were ordained for me. Yet, when as yet there was not one of them. How precious also are your thoughts to me, O God. How vast is the sum of them. If I should count them, they would outnumber the sand. When I awake, I am still with you. Oh, that you would slay the wicked, O God. Depart from me, therefore, men of bloodshed, for they speak against you wickedly, and your enemies take your name in vain. Do I not hate those who hate you, O Lord? And do I not loathe those who rise up against you? I hate them with the utmost hatred. They have become my enemies. Search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me and know my anxious thoughts, and see if there be any hurtful way in me, and lead me in the everlasting way.
Thank you. So does anyone see any particular God searching us or this writer searching God in these other verses?
Is David doing the seeking?
Can you pick out a spot, a line, or just your overall view?
Yeah.
And if you feel like I put you on the spot, you don't just be like, pass. That's fine. I'll try and get out of nursing instructor mode if I can. All right, so is that helpful to people? Is that useful? Yes.
I just think this is amazing. The creator of the universe, should seek us. I mean,
It truly
step
is.
back and think of what this means.
And who's read Job, or who's familiar with Job? And people think that that's just a story of, this guy endures. He's put through, these boils and all this horrible stuff, and he loses his farm and he loses his wife. And we don't have time to go do the whole story. It's a lovely story. But what happens there is Job is just really just beside himself. He's depressed. Everything. He's angry, and he's like, God, why don't you just kill me now, basically. And then God comes down and talks to him, and he's like, where the heck were you when I invented the universe? I'm God. And Job's sort of like, oh, sorry. So what's interesting? But what's interesting about that story is, God points out that he's this vast creator, and he does all these marvelous things, but then he's also willing to come down and talk to Job. And even though Job's going through horrible, horrible things, he's like, oh, you are here with me. Okay. And bows down. And
that's not the only illustration of God come down.
oh, no, absolutely not.
It's all through the Bible.
Absolutely. Give us one.
Well,
Talk about
Jesus,
putting you on the spot.
through Jesus, okay.
Yep.
But when he talks to Adam and Eve,
Right. Yep.
he's searching them.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
I had the same reaction you did. I had never ever once thought about about it from that perspective. I always heard people come to the Bible or people come to church, but I
Right.
never once thought of it
Right.
from the opposite way around until one of our pre-meetings where
Right.
we covered this topic.
So that's a gift from the author of this, he's a Presbyterian minister, I believe. From the author of this program, I should be able to say his name. Thank you. But just to give you that sort of insight. So hopefully there'll be pearls like this that come out as we go. All right, pressed for time. It would be good if you could look at these. Maybe we'll just do one for the interest of time. Just pick another person to discuss. We can do, let's do Acts. Let's do Acts 17, 22 through 28. And just read it and discuss with another person, just somebody nearby. You know, we have COVID worries. Or if you end up, well, so it's Acts 17. Now, does everybody know how you look something up? Does everybody know there's a table of contents in the beginning of the Bible? I don't want to assume everybody knows. So there's a table of contents in the beginning. So if you're not sure where you might find Acts hints, it's in the New Testament. It's after Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, right? And you have the book of Acts. So one thing you might want to practice when you get home, if you're not good at looking things up, is, you know, just how the heck to look things up in the Bible. So you can look at the table of contents. Usually if you see a verse, like you see in the book there, the chapter will be 139, and then there's a colon, and then the verses come after that. So if anybody has any trouble looking up Acts 17, 22 through 28, speak now or forever hold your peace. No, you can always ask. And if you're in a pew alone, you can ask the person in front of you to be in their group if you don't cough on them, or behind you, or you can just do it on your own. And what you'll do if you were doing this at home is to write out in your resource book, write your thoughts, so that when you come in the next week, you can just discuss what you thought about. So I'll give you a couple minutes. You can write it in your resource book or just. So who's doing the seeking?
Who's doing the seeking? It's the Greeks are searching for. That's who they do. Yeah. It's like this thing.
So it's like he's putting this out.
Gotta say, the group on the right's a lot more chatty than the group on the left. Oh, my right. Obviously, you guys are talking. Bill, you can turn around and talk to the other Bill. Bill over in the chatty corner. Get away.
I know.
So the sequel,
Yeah, Pearl's beings.
But then
Well,
it says.
No,
the Greek definitely means
Carolyn, you spoke to Charles.
So he's not, he's not.
Tap her on the shoulder and see if you understand.
Yeah, he's kind of the intermediate.
You want to ask Charles, you guys? Chat. No. I'm just trying to find you a partner, Carolyn.
Oh, I'm sure Charles would be happy to discuss this.
I have a study Bible that says the supernatural state, supernatural power, so that's whoever this unknown person. But not, yeah, it was not, and that, I think it also says in 27 that we are supposed to seek him. He's trying to get them to understand we're supposed to seek him. I guess, well, nobody's seeking anything, part of it, I would say, he's trying to get them to do it, but nobody is. It just shows. Right. But I would say nobody sometimes changes them, sometimes doesn't. But they will.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, right, and then the original language is what it needs to be, is it the same? So, and I haven't done that for that first, so that's what I would do first. But you know, I was go back straight to life because this is the answer to hate is not knowing about what he said, and he has not actually himself in his man's form. So like all the people they think so whatever. So I think this is more less than that. Should be what they should be doing that they're not. Oh no, that's not. Right. I would, well, yeah, I would definitely say, so, yes, I'd say he is seeking, yeah. Yeah, he's seeking. God is seeking us through Paul. Is seeking he's his voice here.
Yes, that's true.
So it's 10 after, gosh, I wish we could go to 11:30, but, but I know you gotta get out of here. But this will give you a sense of how things will go. Just pop up some, first of all, was it different looking at the Bible with somebody else? Yeah. Yeah, okay, all right, so if anybody just wants to give a quick couple of words about who was seeking whom in Acts.
I think it was both.
Like,
I think the people were clearly seeking God. And Paul sort of, I don't want to say admonishes them, but tells them that they're somewhat doing it incorrectly. But then he also states that God is everywhere and it's being everywhere, so he's seeking him as well.
So this is a really interesting story because it's the Greeks, and who were the gods for the Greeks at that time?
Statues.
Statues of
gods.
I don't want to mix up my Roman with my Greek. Somebody help me. Zeus and Apollo, and forgive me if I put the Roman ones. Right. So, but why did they have a statue to an unknown God?
Just in case.
Just in case, right? They were like, I better have a statue to this God, or he's going to get me, and I better have a statue to this God, or he's going to get me. So they left one open, just in case. And Paul was like, Paul?
Yeah.
Paul was saying, oh, this is nice that you left one open, because you know who you left it open for? You left it open for the God of Israel. You left it open for Yahweh, and that's the God that you should be praying to. So that's what's fun about this one.
So he's actually helping.
Yeah, he was telling them that you don't need to pray to Apollo. You don't need to pray to Zeus. You don't need to. The one that you didn't know the name of is the one who's calling out to you. So that's, yeah.
We kind of, in our discussion, we kind of felt that it was God seeking us, but through Paul.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. Through the, yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Who's the instrument?
The whole thing to these people is taking place in the temple,
Yes,
not anywhere else.
yes.
They go to the temple and the statues are there,
Mhm.
and that's what they're seeking.
and it's interesting because these are folks, some of them just seeking the gods that they know that are not the gods of the universe that created. Do you know what I mean? But they left a space open. You could say, maybe I'm reading into it, but in their hearts, right? They had a space available. So it's a really cool illustration. Even if people are, and it doesn't have to be a Greek god, it could be the god of money or the god of whatever. This idea that there's still a space to be reached by that god is really cool. All right, so now we've got like 3 minutes to do everything else I want you to do. But so go ahead and read this chapter, do this chapter, and then do the next one. It's kind of fun because there's going to be some Hebrew stuff. You have time. I know Christmas is coming and Thanksgiving and all that mess. But if you want this, if you want to seek God, God expects you to do a little homework. That's all I'm saying. The other thing I want to tell you about, though, before you leave, and we just won't get to everything, and that's okay. But did you notice they were all about seeking? All these verses are about seeking. How the heck did the author figure out Bible verses about seeking? Like, how would you do that?
You look it up.
How?
Concord.
Concord, lovely. So everybody knows of concordance? We have a large print edition, but the idea is, say I was preaching a sermon on love. I can look up love in this book, and it will have all of the times that the word love or the word, seek or the word hate, whatever it might be, then you can look up. So this is kind of hard to see, and we can do this next time, but you can go on the internet, and so you find a verse, thinkest thou that I cannot now pray to my Father, and he shall presently give me more than 12 legions of angels. There's angels? What about angels? And here's 10 verses in the Bible about angels. Does that make sense to everybody? Yep. So next week I can show you how to do a quick internet search for every time angel is mentioned. You can write down this website and then I'll finish. We'll finish with prayer. It's called Bible Gateway. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, and I'll show you next time. But there is a concordance on Bible Gateway, and I can show you next time because I don't want to keep you any longer. Totally write in those books. If you feel like you want to write a 12-page essay, I'm not grading it, I don't have time, but if you want to write that, then maybe you want to just get a simple little notebook to bring with you for extra notes. You could do that, but please read your books. Read your books. Read your books. So what the author also suggests, 1 minute extra, is that we do joys and concerns. We'll do that. We've run out of time, but some churches will do that. Do you have any joys? Do you have any concerns? We may throw that in and see if it works into the end. Otherwise, we can just close in prayer. Is anybody? Yes.
The next class is December 7th.
Thank you. And that's a Tuesday, and then we do the following Saturday.
Right.
It is available. It's always
7.
Thank you. And it's also available if you can't make it. It's recorded. Hopefully, it got recorded and on Zoom. So, does anyone want to pray us out? Or I can take you nominations. Let us pray. Okay. Lord, thank you for this time to come together. Thank you for these wonderful seekers of your word. Thank you, Holy Spirit, for bringing them here and for being with us today. Help this be a place where we can bolster one another's curiosity and fulfill one another in seeking your joy and your love. Help us to teach one another as we come to know you better, as you come to know us and seek us as well. In your name we pray. Amen.